Go live. Cool. It seems like we are live.
All
Uh,
right.
yeah, I'm just gonna go quickly add a participant who is going to be a fire, so that we can have an actual fireside chat.
Okay.
I know that both Jade's in the waiting room.
Okay.
Okay, I'll be back.
All right.
Hey there, Jade. Welcome. The meeting hasn't started yet, but we have started live streaming. So if anyone's on YouTube, they'll be able to see this conversation. I'm just gonna go quickly add a fire as part of the participants.
This was my only one requirement, was that the fireside chat had a fire.
Hi, Jade.
Hi, Daphne. How you doing?
I'm good, thank you. Hope you're good.
I'm good. I'm quite tired though.
Yeah, as I mentioned to Daphne, let me see if I can pause the live stream. Is it recording? No, not yet. But yeah, as I mentioned to Daphne, I mean, this conversation is going to be fairly relaxed. I think we just need to wait for Pelanomi to join, and then we can get started. It'll be a fairly straightforward start. Daphne will be your host for today. They'll just give you an introduction. They've got their bio, your guys' bios. And then I think we'll just ask you a little bit about Lelapa AI. And yeah, I think we'll do our best to try to get as much participation from the audience as possible to make it as firesidey and as chatty as possible. And yeah, I think we were aiming for about 45 minutes. But you're also welcome to send me a private message at any point if you'd like to. Yeah, cool. I will be back in a moment. But yeah, it looks like we're still just waiting for Pelanomi, unless there are the participant that is named iPhone.
Hi, Pelonomi.
Hello.
Oh, hey, welcome everyone. Yeah, we're almost ready to get started. Hey, Nomi.
Hey,
How's your day going so far?
not bad. Not bad. Sorry, I got lost because I was looking at my Lelapa email, but I'm here now.
Sure. So even though the meeting hasn't really started, we are currently live streaming to YouTube. I have no idea how many people are watching us there, but we can get started soon. I'm just going to quickly add a individual that's I'm going to share their screen. That will be the fire because this is a fireside chat.
That was my prerequisite. I said we
Um,
could do a fireside chat as long as there is a fire.
But yeah, so Daphne will be your host today. I will be hanging around, maybe asking annoying questions from the audience, and yeah. So Daphne, whenever you're ready, you guys can take it away.
I see people in the waiting room. Should they be admitted?
Yes. So I'm just going to get an okay from Daphne, and then when I do, I'll admit them all.
Okay. So we're starting.
Yes. Also, everyone is a co-host, just in case of any kind of catastrophic failure. We all have the power to do things. Yeah, I'm going to admit everyone. Let's do this. Admit all.
Okay. Hi, everyone. Welcome to our seminar on the Fireside Chat with Lelapa AI. My name is Daphne, and we have our two guests here. We have our two guests here today, Jade and Pelonomi. So the two, they are part of the Lelapa AI, and I'll just briefly state their bios. So Pelonomi as an individual has spent 8 years in the data science domain, and she has been in the biomedical and electrical engineering department from the University of Wits. She also has an MSc from Tohoku University, and she has been named to be among the 200 young South Africans listed in 2019. And then Jade has spent 10 years in the building and professionalizing AI in industry, and she has worked across different sectors from banking to NGOs and startups. She's also a co-founder of Masakane, and she has also had recent honors being one of South Africa's Inspiring 50 2020. And as a team, Pelonomi is the CEO and Jade is the COO of Lelapa AI. So we shall hear from them. We'll start with Jade. Over to you. You can say something.
What would you like me to say?
Okay, so in addition to I just read a short bio of both of you guys. So maybe Jade, you can just add to the things that I've said concerning you as a person and you as a member of the Lelapa AI.
Okay, yeah, so I can talk a bit about Lelapa. I can also talk a little bit about, we got the fire. Very nice. Even a fireside chat if there's not a fire. So Lelapa we founded about a year ago, or at least we registered the business then. We've been talking about it for a while. This was kind of a result of the fact that, for the past 5 or so years, kind of since the beginning of the deep learning Indaba and its founding team had come together to put on that first event at WITS, we've really seen kind of AI talent strengthen and grow on the African continent. And yet, despite that, we see a lot of the African talent kind of leaving and going abroad and ending up doing PhDs there, and then never being able to return because there are very few places they can actually work on AI in Africa. And kind of additionally, we see that, another thing happening, which is that African companies, to solve their AI needs, were looking abroad and not finding solutions that could actually solve their problems. And so this is kind of why Lelapa got created, and is to kind of bring these things together. So yeah, so that's my little intro, I guess, into the origin of Lelapa. I don't know what else to say about myself. I'll maybe hand on to Pelonomi, can probably talk a little bit more about why is there a heart on the...
Because I drew it, and I've been trying to make sure that I concentrate hard enough, not on the fire, and drawing a little sheep. Because you can annotate.
This is how we know nobody's really paying attention to what I'm saying.
Well, I was going to say, you can't talk about yourself, but I can talk about you. Maybe we can do it that way.
Yes.
Yeah. So, of course, if you have been introduced to Lelapa AI, then you probably know more about Jade's story than she has shared. And I am #1 fan and honorary member of Masakane, because I think it's just the coolest thing ever. So a lot of where Lelapa has come from is this amazing community and network of people that have been moving in the background to develop the skills and capability of machine learning talent on the continent. So, I mean, without Jade, we wouldn't have Masakane, and therefore wouldn't have, well, maybe it might have happened organically in some kind of other way, but definitely not in this way. We wouldn't have this huge movement on the continent towards contemporary machine understanding of local languages on the continent, but also from a global perspective, low resource languages, which I think a lot of the rest of the world has benefited from what has been happening here. And yeah, in addition to that, there's also the work of other co-founders in the labs that they've established in South Africa, but a lot of the people who attend those labs are from other parts of the African continent. So funny, I always say the continent because I just assume, like, there's many continents, but the continent is always Africa. I mean, the others don't really feel like continents, I guess. Anyway.
Europe is to refer to itself as the continent, but they're wrong.
I mean, it's attached to another continent, so it can't be the continent. Anyway. Yeah, so with the deep learning Indaba and the data science or social good lab at UP in Pretoria, Johannesburg. UP, now I'm saying Pretoria is part of Johannesburg. I guess one day it will turn into a metropolis. In South Africa, and the rail lab at Wits University in South Africa with the focus on reinforcement learning. Lelapa is just like an additional link to this community of really inspiring people who are driving positive change on the continent within the machine learning space. And yeah, we're just super excited about what that could mean for a potential future that is nicer and more exciting than the present that we currently occupy. Yeah, I don't feel like talking about myself either, so
yeah, if you want me to talk about Pelonomi, I will do so gladly, Daphne.
Sure, you can.
Yes. Yes, well, I can talk about how I met Gnomes, which is, I suppose, an important conversation because it's a founder story. And so while we briefly met, I think at the first Indaba, I think we most prominently met was at the Indaba X, which is at the South African one. And we met because we were on a panel together, which was a really fun panel. Can now see Pelanomi sheep. How did you do that? I've been trying to draw on this fire. And her I just sat there and I think we just agreed on everything, and everything she said that came out of her mouth, I was like, yeah, exactly. And then she had a talk on ethics of AI. And, these days, a lot of people are talking about ethics of AI, and Nomi was really one of the early people talking about it, specifically in a South African and an African context. And I remember her talk had a number of examples that were actually from African examples that were relevant, even, those couple of years ago. And so, we met there and then went on to create, we ran an event for women in AI, which was really fun. And I think somewhere along the roads, we, despite becoming closer friends, we realized that we liked working together and building new things.
Also because we were both addicted to working and didn't know how to have social relationships that weren't tied to productivity because we'd been captured by capitalism.
Yeah, so even when we were not productive, we had a reading group. So we'd meet on Sundays and be like, okay, let's read a paper together as a group, or we've all read a paper, let's discuss it.
Or at a bar. Yeah,
and then we moved that to a bar, and eventually we slowly convinced ourselves out of this purely working relationship. So that's where we're at the moment. Nomi's like a wonderful, I think, like I said, I always tell her this, one of the most strategic, people I know, but also one of the most visionary. Everything from the work she does with ethics, but also, ability to work with products and work with people, to the fact that she nearly got arrested for starting a community garden. Like, all of these are true story, testament to who Nomi is. If only she had gotten arrested for trying to start a community garden.
It would be a really cool story.
Yeah. Almost. Okay. So that's us chatting. Back to you, Daphne.
Okay, wow. So that's quite interesting. So, okay, before I proceed, I think I'll just like to let the participants know that this is a relaxed fireside chat. So anyone would like to ask Jade and Pelanomi a question can unmute themselves and maybe perhaps ask. So that's how the session is going to be like. Okay, so before the other participants ask, I found it quite interesting that the way you guys met, like I'm thinking, okay, so it was at an event, like the Indaba event. And I'm thinking, okay, so many people meet and, sometimes there's production and sometimes people become friends from just a simple event. So it's really quite interesting. And I'm super excited because I'm seeing two ladies. So I wanted to ask, like, how do you guys manage? You have the Lelapa, you have your work, you have other things that you're involved in. So a day is 24 hours. How do you guys manage to do everything?
We don't manage. I don't think it's possible to manage.
I was trying to get back into talk mode because I was still too busy drawing my sheep. I think so. Lelapa, is our work, but I think even with that, we were discussing this earlier about trying to maintain balanced lifestyles, and for the most part, I think it's doable. Except I think it's very easy to get caught up in in the rush of it. So for instance, we needed to build up to a launch. We launched in February, which was really exciting, and had an event and closed our funding round, and you know, that meant that January and December were this huge push. And it's very easy to push, and particularly if you're that type of personality, with both myself and Pelanomi are, we're this type of personality, just push. And now I think we're quite tired. So when we say we don't, it's because now we're like, and so, you know, we knew even then, we discussed, we're like, we're going to have to slow down eventually. We're borrowing from the future, because that's essentially what you're doing when you're running at such a high pace, that you're borrowing time and productivity from some future time that's, you know, you're going to feel at some stage. And so, you know, trying to find the things that rejuvenate you is useful. And I think Nomi had one thing which she said, rejuvenate is, you know, actually is rejuvenating. So I just took a week off and I still feel tired.
Yeah. I mean, at the Indaba last year, Elaine, I can't remember her surname. She had this amazing thing about how you should work on things that vex you. Because if you're angry and are really seeking change in the world, then you are energized by that vexedness. Like yesterday, I was changing flight details. And in this process, the person who was helping me change the flight wasn't listening to me and then made a mistake. And I was so angry. I had been tired the entire day up until that point where I got really, really mad. And I was like, remembering what Elaine said in terms of being angry helps to energize you. And I think that's one way to do it, is to work on something that you're really passionate about from an anger perspective. The other way to do it is to really believe in a vision, and to wholeheartedly and sincerely imagine something that you really believe in and want really badly to be true. Because that will always help you. I mean, that's what's helping me get up in the mornings. As Jade says, we're both very tired. And every time we get called by our PR team to do another engagement, or we have a client meeting that we're nervous about, or we have to plan for something in the future, we always have this vision that kind of pulls us along in order for us to get there. So I think those are two cheat codes, but they both have their downsides. The vision part, if you hold them to a vision to get you going through, you'll be tired the whole time, but you'll still wake up and do the thing. Whereas the anger part, you won't be as tired. For some reason, anger is very energizing, but I think it will have taxing implications longer down the road. But yeah, as Jade said, I don't think we've reached a point of the type of balance that we have envisioned is what our lives require in order to feel whole, but also functional.
4-day hikes is what Nomi said earlier.
Yeah, I mean, that's the only way I know to like make you not feel tired in a short amount of time is go for a 4 or 5 day hike in the middle of nowhere with no cell phone and just walking all day. That can fix you pretty fast, but I don't think it's a long-term solution, Jade.
Yeah, so I think the real answer is we're still learning. And I think, yeah, I don't know if we're a good example. Like we've been looking at other people who went before us, and their whole story has been you got to work until you're going to die working. You know, that's that kind of approach to startups.
Hustle culture, yeah.
Hustle culture, and like we think there's another way, but it's hard.
We don't know what that way is. Yeah.
Yeah, it's hard not to get caught up into it. That said, we are okay. We're not working late into the evenings. We, don't work on weekends unless absolutely necessary. So it's not like we're hustling all the time. It's just that when we're on, there's a lot going on.
Yeah. And I think having the expectation that you would have everything worked out and everything balanced, like 5 a.m. wake up, exercise, eat your eggs and toast, chuk is an unrealistic expectation to have of yourself anyway. So
yeah, apparently that's how the Silicon Valley guys do it, is they just are really proficient and optimized and eat only.
And I'm very resistant to being that way.
just
As
fundamentally.
helpful as it might be. Maybe I am a masochist and
You still do yoga daily.
Yeah.
Step one.
Wow, it's interesting because I think the way we try to rejuvenate ourselves, it's what matters and keeps us going. So I wanted to invite participants to actually ask questions, and you could type a question and then we can try to address the question in order, and you can we can unmute you and you ask the question you want to ask. Any questions from the audience?
Yeah, so feel free to ask about, like, I don't know, if any of you have startups that you're wanting to start or have questions about what that looks like. I know when we started, I had no idea what I was doing. And so we've now just been through this journey of learning of what it's like to pitch to investors, what it's like to pitch to clients. And so anyone who's interested in that, we can give you our little, tufts of experience. Otherwise, you can just ask them next to the fire.
I think that's the issue. Like, whenever someone wants to start something, there are these fears, and you think you can have everything worked out and solved. So I think it's good for you to let us know that sometimes you can start something without having any idea of how it's going to be like, and it can still turn out good, like the way you guys, the Lelapa AI has turned out. Because I also saw your interview on SABC. It was quite insightful and nice. So I feel like you guys are going far. So maybe you can just give random advice, seeing that we're still waiting for the questions to pop up. You can just give some random advice on how the startups can be like.
Yeah, I wouldn't suggest that you go in without a plan. I mean, we might look that way, but we definitely have a strategic vision, at least for the next 2 years, about how to operate, what we want to do and what we want to achieve. But I think what's really important about that plan is that it is agile, and that we can come back to it whenever we need to, and quite regularly do come back to it, to adjust and pivot, to make sure that the direction it's heading in is the same direction that we're heading in, and that direction is aligned with what we're trying to achieve. But yeah, I think it is an important thing to not be worried about starting and to just start. Yeah, I think actually we took a while to start.
There was a lot of talking.
Yeah, I mean, we launched in February of this year, but we had officially incorporated March of last year, and had been talking for a couple of months before that.
Yeah, and we were invited on by 3 other members who started the original
before then. Yeah,
talking for a year before then. So it can be, it's okay if you're unsure at the beginning to sit and mull over things. Eventually you want to pull the trigger and be like, let's do the thing, register the company.
Yeah.
But for us, what was really important was like understanding what it is we're solving. So the thing that we spent the most time upon before we actually considered, even incorporating the company was like, what are we doing? And so we spent a lot of time doing that. And the what wasn't, what is the product? We actually, for us, it's much easier if you're focusing on a specific product. For us, it was like a much greater vision, a much greater problem we were solving. It was the coming together of many, many different pieces. And so to kind of tell that story, which is what, fundraising and starting a business is about, you have to like have the story. Building that up was a matter of telling it to ourselves in different ways over and over till it made sense to us, because we knew we had it between us, and we knew what it meant among us, but we needed to kind of iterate it so that it made sense to tell to other people.
Yeah, and then even when we were ready to tell to other people, we were clearly had the when we were bouncing those ideas off of each other, we clearly had the same romantic mindset of how the world could possibly work. I think initially we were thinking more of a research type of organization rather than one that produced products. And we knew we wanted to create impact, but we had to develop a business case to make sure that our dream was sustainable, and to make sure that that sustainable dream was helping to assist and support the startup ecosystem and the problem-solving landscape in Africa as a whole. I think a lot of ideas are really great, but you really do need to unpack them to ensure that you are addressing a particular need, and that solving that need has a way for you to earn income so that you can keep going. Because it doesn't help for us to start a lot of things and not finish them, because we miss out on the impact that they're able to contribute to. But also then, I mean, if you fizzle out, then we've lost a valuable problem-solving resource as well.
Oh, okay, there is a hand there. Okay, you can speak, Chris.
Hey, everybody. This is your local friendly host, Chris. I'm just going to note that we actually have some questions coming through on the YouTube live stream. So, you know, this is the first time we're trialing this method of like streaming on YouTube and on Zoom. So our intention was to prioritize the Zoom questions, but our audience has been very quiet. So I'm going to read some of the questions from the YouTube thread. So we've got one coming in from, and sorry if I get you guys' names a bit wrong, but Mena Hem Fuchs. They've asked, please talk to some use cases that Lelapa is working on that embody the idea of African AI challenges.
Drawing sheep, Jade.
Yeah, I'll have to answer because well, sheep are very cute, man. So yeah, so I mean, if we can start with kind of our initial offering, which is our language products, Vula Vula. One of the things that happens in Africa, but you know, South Africa in particular, if we're talking about voice, we're talking about speech, is this idea of code switching. So that means, you know, where the fact that we switch languages mid 3 times in a sentence. And traditionally NLP systems cannot really handle that. And so not only are we dealing with languages that NLP systems usually do not handle, so that's, you know, the initial ad, but also, you know, we aim to support this enhanced code switching ability so that we are able to transcribe, or we're able to do entity detection when you've got, you know, various other functions, you know, while code switching. And so this is an example of one of the challenges that we're looking at. Another challenge, another problem we're looking at is energy. So this is much more like an early stage problem, but obviously in South Africa, this is a huge issue. For those of you who aren't based in South Africa, although if you are based in Africa, you will know the problem in some other form or another, where we currently do not have electricity for a large percentage of the time. And so, you know, ways around optimizing that, whether it be around, you know, how do we optimize how this is delivered when we put in renewable energy, how do we optimize it within the household, et cetera, et cetera. So there's stuff in that space, which, you know, while being, you know, very directly applicable to the kind of energy crisis in South Africa, is actually world impactful, right? Anything change we can make here impacts the rest of the world. So there are maybe 2 examples. Gnomes, any others? Now that you're done with sheep.
No, not really. I think what has also been very important to us is, although we have this broad range of domains and broad range of problems that we want to be solving in, we really have focused in on what we know we're good at. for the time being, so that we can kind of do the checkbox item of, okay, we know how to do this, we've got this down, we can help other people do the same thing. So we really are focusing on that language space. So that the Vula Vula example of the code switching for us, I mean, has also been super fascinating, because as we research these things and go through these problems, we're learning more about ourselves and the people that we share our country with. But another problem that I found super fascinating is this idea of broken language. So a lot of the language models that you have out there in the world, I think English has enough of a variety in its data set that that it's able to deal with different varying levels of English, and you also have this idea of dealing with different dialects. But something we're also looking into is like broken English, or in in Joburg, when people speak Zulu or Xhosa or Tswana or anything like that, it's like a Joburg version. It's not an official dialect, but it isn't the truest form of the language. So for us, looking into things like that is also quite interesting, and something that is specific to, I guess, not our context, but yeah, is specific to our context.
Okay, thank you. I'll read a question from Jay. Maybe Jay, you can unmute and ask.
Sure. Hi, Jade and Pilu. So my question was just, during the process of deciding which products you were going to build, how do you go about doing your customer research so that you ensure that you do make the most impact, as Peter said?
Yeah, I'll start because Jade maybe is still drawing wine. So one of the things about the machine learning space and the data science space in particular is that you are really aids acting in service of particular domains. So I think something which is quite important for us to establish is that we are not the expert in any particular domain. Which means that we are not the expert in terms of solving particular problems in a particular domain. So, for example, if we want to enter into the medical domain, what we do is then partner with experts in that field and provide them the service that then helps to bolster whatever service they're providing to people. So this is one of the reasons why we've opted for a business-to-business type of model, is so that we can focus on the fundamental science and consult and work together and partner with organizations that already have a very good idea of what their market requires and what their market needs. So if we're speaking to a bank has already gone through the research purposes of understanding what exactly they need in order to better connect with their clients, or to extend their reach or extend their capabilities. And then we're able to help support them in the research that they've conducted, which they know will benefit their business, but also benefit their consumers. And then I guess for us, we just go off of what we deem to be important. It's a bit of a scary role to be in, because it means we're making selections about what we think will have impact, and sometimes we have estimations of those values. But from that point onwards, then we're deciding what kind of businesses we interact with and who we partner with in order to solve the solutions that they're working on. Yeah. Jade, I don't know if you have something to add to that.
No, sounds good. Really lots of interesting questions in the chat.
So I'll be reading the questions according to their appearance on the chat. So the next one is from Pumelelo. The question is, and the progress so far towards the vision and goals of the organization. And also I'm keen to know the business model. I think you touched on that one. Okay.
Yeah, no, I think we've mostly, I mean, progress, it's very hard to determine progress of a very lofty goal. Also, we've just started. And yeah, I think we've highlighted the business model. So we really are working to be products, building products which go to businesses. So how can we empower businesses to connect with more customers, to be more efficient in their job, et cetera, and do that through either kind of more enterprise partnership or a business to business partnership, or through APIs.
Yeah, and with regards to the progress, I mean, we have like 3 key areas, and Jay touched on them earlier that we're interested in, and one of them is in terms of hiring talent on the continent. So I guess we've started progress on that because we've started growing our team, and it's been super satisfying that part of that team has come out of the labs that our co-founders have been nearly said brewing, as if it's a spell, have been growing in their areas, and that we are working on local contextualized solutions. That's another area in which we've dedicated our mission to ensuring that we're doing that. So we're on the road. And then the third area is with regards to responsible AI development. And by interacting with responsible development methods just in our practice generally within our company, we're on the way to that there, and have plans in the pipeline to make sure that we continue to do so, and help other institutions who do similar work to do the same. So I always like to say that if your vision and goals are close enough that you're able to achieve them, then you're not dreaming big enough. So I kind of like the idea that we're on the way, and we'll always be on the way because there'll always be work to do. But the vision and the goal kind of guides us in the right direction. But it means that there's no limit to what we believe or think that we can achieve.
Okay, thank you. And then there's Martha. Martha, I think you can unmute. Martha says, how did you decide how much funding you needed to get off the ground?
Jade is staying on mute and nodding. Does that mean I should answer?
Questions. How did we decide? You have to try estimate what you're going to need to achieve your goal for the first year or so. So typically you raise money for an amount of time. That's usually between a year and 2 years. Often some people go for 6 months, but would not recommend. We've actually opted to go for a very long time, which is 2 years for a seed round. And there you look at, predictions on what type of staff you'll be hiring, when you'll be hiring them, how much is office costs. And you basically do like a scratch budget on how much it'll cost to run the business for that long. Yeah. And we did it at quite a
Generous, I think.
Yeah, I would say generous. So we'd be giving, what would it be like if we gave, had to give good salaries to people, but also we didn't get income for 2 years. So it's a pessimistic view of what we'd need. And then there was a lot of back and forth. So we probably reworked that thing 5 times, 6 times, as the business model pivoted, as things changed.
Yeah, I think our initial ask was $5 million.
No one wanted to give us. Apparently that's too much for a seed round. We don't know. We didn't know. We were just like, oh. And I think we were just running on advice. We didn't even have numbers by then. Yeah. Slowly we refined that, and that got a lot smaller. And then we decided, okay, let's keep the team smaller for a bit longer and make sure that, rather keep it smaller, a little bit tighter for 2 years, and make impact with that as opposed to doing like a lot of growth very quickly.
That being said, I think we've been really ambitious in terms of the type of stuff we want to do and how far we want to go. If you have a product in mind and you're basically aiming to push that product and just do that, you definitely don't need anywhere near the amount of money that we've raised to make sure that happens. And it's kind of funny. I'm like I'm super frugal. And I've been held to account by other people on my team who, and rightfully so, you know, when you're running a business, you need to spend money in order to make money. And finding the balance between those two attitudes is really, really important. But at the same time, if you're a smaller company, you can make do with what you don't have, you know. I think there's a common misconception that you need a lot of resources in order to make something and create something special. And to that I say, where there's a will, there's a way. Of course, having funding makes it a lot simpler and a lot easier. So I would recommend, but don't think it's not possible because you're not able to raise as much as you had hoped.
Okay, thank you. Looks like the questions are increasing. Okay, so our next question is from Abram. He's asking, can Vula Vula handle code switching between a South African language and English, or between a South African language and another South African language?
So Abram, I mean, it's really dependent on the task we're working with. And we're still evaluating every combination, but fundamentally there's no strong reason why it can't. And so we have done it with English and isiZulu, and we're also able to handle the code switching. So we're able to detect, okay, it's something else, and switch to, well, choose not to switch to another language. So we, for instance, had a couple of sentences with building a chatbot, as one does. And I think we had some English, some isiZulu and Afrikaans in one sentence, and it was still able to actually pick up the intent. So there are certain, I 100%, and that's kind of what we're aiming to build. So is to be able to fully code switch between English, and I'd say it's not just English, it's South African English. So it's not even a English dialect. Well, you know, standard English, it's South African English, and other South African languages, because that's how people talk.
Yeah, and the models Jade are talking about is a multilingual model. So essentially, the model should be able to handle many languages on its own. We're not developing different models for the different languages necessarily. So that code switching happens within the context of the same model.
Yeah. A good way to see it is, depending on the paradigm, is that we have multilingual, for instance, classifiers, detectors, etc. But we can also have the ability to do language detection. So that helps us in choosing which language to respond to. Like, okay, this language, this is most likely, they might have spoken in 5 different languages to us in 3 sentences, but they're mostly speaking Zulu. So let's respond back in Zulu, for example.
Yeah. The bot doesn't speak back in Fanagolo.
Yes,
that would be kind of cool, but probably not very useful.
Hey, you never know.
Have we lost our host?
It looks like we might have.
Maybe she's fetching marshmallows and biscuits.
Roast on the fire. Marshmallows. Why are they making wine and whiskey with marshmallows?
You can add a marshmallow to the sheep in the corner.
They can.
Sure. So I think in the absence of that, I'll just continue to ask some of the questions that are coming through on the YouTube live stream. I am keeping in mind that we have scheduled this chat just until the top of the hour, and I know that both Pelonomi and Jade are very busy individuals, so we do only have about 15 more minutes. So I'll try to be concise. So we have Melo asking, any plans to open source any of your work? If no, why, and what impacts do you think that will have on the progress of African-centric AI development?
I like how this question is prefaced with the assumption already that we're not going to open source.
Yeah, we plan to open source portions of our work. So while we won't open source everything, She's giving me side eyes. Yes, we have plans
No,
to do.
I'm sorry. I can just hear music. I don't know if that's just me or
I think it's
yes,
just
it is
you.
just me. Sorry,
TikTok.
sorry. No, I have a panel open. Okay. Sorry, that face was not for you.
I was like, girl, there's no
Please
plan.
continue.
So yeah, so we well, we don't not going to open source everything because obviously there needs to be some sort of competitive advantage. We do obviously as part of our values need like contribute. Part of our core values is to contribute to the ecosystem. It's like we are part of the ecosystem. And so you'll see one of our primary investors was Mozilla Ventures, and part of what they actually require in order to invest is to open source some of the work as well as create open data. And this kind of aligns with, the fact that we are both, research and product, right? So the research aspect is open sourced. And so while we'll have products and integrations and things and infrastructure, which won't be a fair amount of it will be through our ongoing research. We also are really interested in building useful open source tooling for the kind of ethics space. Yeah.
Good, thanks. And yeah, Daphne has mentioned she's having a couple connectivity issues. We have another YouTube question from Intron Health, and I suspect this is Toby. Who's paying for these language tools and who's paying for code switching?
Right now, it's primarily because this is our primary target market. Well, our first target market because it was the easiest one and was in huge demand. And I say easiest because finance has money, and finance has many use cases. So banks, insurers, call centers. Who else is on that list?
Chat services that
Anything.
health and education type functionality.
Health and education are the ones who are kind of paying for the language tools.
Yeah.
Who's paying for code switching in particular. This is one similar list. It's the same group.
Sure, thank you. And I see, yeah, go ahead.
I love this question about what is the fire burning?
Real question is, why are they sheep?
Okay, Jonathan. The reason the fire is burning, I don't know if you answered because it's a fireside chat. Well, yeah, something like. So I'm not sure, Chris, if there are any questions from YouTube viewers.
Yeah, that's the last then. I'm going to ask a quick question, just because this fireside chat is in the context of our Sasonko Biotic Ideathon for Health challenge, and we did recently have all of our judges review submissions from 5 teams. These were 15-minute videos on ideas for using AI for healthcare in Africa, and Pelonomi is one of our esteemed judges. And I think at the end of this fireside chat, we will announce the top 3 teams to go through to the final, where they will present live in front of the judges and our audience. But I'm curious just to hear from Pelonomi how she found some of the, well, I mean, maybe without giving away any specifics, just some thoughts on the Ideathon so far.
Yeah. I guess it may be quite hopeful for the day where there'll be opportunities for those kinds of ideas to just pop up and be successful and to be run with, I really love the idea of having idea funds and these incubator spaces for these ideas to be expressed and grown and developed and invested in. But I couldn't help wish that it would be commonplace and easier to do. There were some really cool ideas in there around health applications, which of course I'm quite passionate about because of my biomedical background. But yeah, it just made me quite excited to see more and experience more, especially in the health space. What was really quite interesting though is that they somehow managed to mostly avoid some of the complicated issues that can be experienced with developing technology in the health domain, which I also, every time I think of Sisonke Biotech, I get like, I'm just like, kudos, bow down to you for taking on that challenge of dealing with those kinds of obstacles, because it's such an important space to be, and we really do need change in that area. Yeah, it made me quite excited. I'm not sure quite else what I can say. Yeah.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you so much for that feedback and for the praise for the community. Really, very welcome. Yeah, so we've only got about 5 minutes left. I see that Abram has some questions there. Abram, would you like to unmute and ask those?
Not sure if Abram is able to, okay, but his question was, you decided to keep the team small for a start. How small will that be, and are you hiring at the moment?
We are keeping it small. So I think the team, we aim to be at around 15, if I'm not mistaken, by end of this year. At the moment, it's 4. This is excluding a number of the founding team, who are still primarily focused at the universities. Are we hiring? We're slowly releasing a couple of roles, I think mostly in the full stack developer space. And we'll be hiring probably a little bit later in the year. So yeah, so that's, I'd say, the answer for now. So the full stack roles should be out pretty soon. That's my summary. Current hiring pipeline. I think next year the target's a little bit bigger. I can't remember the numbers, so that would be around 25. What we didn't want to do was hire too many people, run out of money, and then have put a lot of pressure on the business to hire again, to raise again. So instead we're doing it very slowly, strategically, making sure that every person we hire is the right person who can add, the right value to the business, who has the right vision, etc.
Yeah, and we also wanted to make sure that when we do hire people, we aren't putting on them on these very short contractual assignments. Part of us wanting to be a home for talent on the African continent is making that home a stable home, where we're able to support our employees over a number of years. So that's also why we're starting slow and small.
Okay, cool. And then Martha is asking where you see yourself in 5 years as Lelapa.
Oof.
We should ask sooner. 5 years is a long time. Where we see ourselves in 5 years. By then, I think we'll have
Airships.
Airships, hubs in other parts of Africa, ideally.
Yeah.
Have multiple products across a broad range of areas. Yeah, in terms of size, we always wanted to keep it reasonably small, but this idea of expanding geographically kind of opens us up to being able to make the team a little bit bigger, so that we have these hubs that are led independently. We also, I think one of the initial ideas was that we really wanted to be an incubator. So step one was, let's be a research lab with an incubator. And so part of what we care about is kind of spinning out businesses. So even though we create a product, we'd like to often spin that out into its own business that can run itself, as well as be able to support upcoming entrepreneurs on the continent. And so maybe 5 years is the time where we start rethinking that and take it as a priority.
Totally, good answer.
Okay, maybe I should have merged with this one from Abram. Is asking if you would be able to venture into the health space in the near future, and if it's a profitable space for the company.
Yes and yes.
Yeah, but also it's kind of like an ethical question about how profitable basic needs and services should be allowed to be, I guess. But yeah, I think we're looking into our first health applications hopefully within the year. And yeah, I think what we're really searching for is impact and change. We have the support of our investors over the next 2 years. So maybe not all of that has to be absolutely profitable, but more impactful. Yeah.
Okay, so before I hand over to Chris, the last question is, you mentioned investors and okay, I guess you answered. Jade has texted in the chat.
Oh yeah, sorry. Atlantica VCs. So they're Africa-based. Well, they're actually not Africa-based, but they're a fund that specifically invests in African tech startups. So definitely look up at Atlantica VC. Mozilla Ventures. So this is a new ventures business. And then we had a couple of angels. So they're specifically interested in the social space, like the AI social space. So Jeff Dean and Andrew Biedankamp, and then Kareem Begwa from InstaDeep. So that was our kind of main crew, and we had some other angels and some other people coming on board.
Yeah. But if you're looking for funding, I would highly recommend trying to get into a incubator type program, because that really introduces you to some nice networks that help to facilitate the process and make things a bit easier.
But if you do need introductions to some of these people, then we can definitely arrange. Because often one of my big criticisms of the kind of funding networks is that they're so inaccessible for people who aren't already in them. And so unless you, Pelonomi recommends getting into an incubator because that's how they make them open. But when I was looking for people to just email and be like, who are we going to raise from? Yeah. You can't, there's an info email address or an application process, and then they just you get default replied to. Yeah.
I've put in there a company called Vula VC, and they're specifically dedicated to helping African founders find funders. So they might be people to reach out to as well.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. I see some nice art around the fire. Okay, Chris, over to you.
Thank you so much, Daphne. And then also just a very, very warm, grateful thanks to Lelapa AI for joining us for this fireside chat. You guys really, I think, helped create such a wonderful atmosphere and space. And I think you've really set the standard for fireside chats at Sisonke Biotic. And just before you go, I'm going to ask Pelonomi to read the names of our top 3 Ideathon teams that will be presenting on the 30th of March. And while I'm just trying to share my screen, just imagine a drum roll. And
do one on the table.
Okay, this is not it.
It's a terrible drum roll.
And there we go.
So I think this is going first place to third place. Is there a first place to third place? Or does
No,
everybody
this is
win?
just a randomly ordered.
Okay, so everybody wins. We have
It's
health
just it's,
stack.
just-
Yay! Yeah, what? Yes, I'm getting instruction.
So I was just going to say that these are the top 3 that are going to be competing on the 30th of March for first, second, and third.
Ah, I see, I see. So congratulations to these 3 teams, Health Stack, BioMacTech, and Kupano. Well done. And we'll see you on the 30th. Exciting. Yeah.
Cool. Thank you very much. And yes, thanks again for your time. It has been really awesome hanging out. And yeah, thanks to everyone for stopping by.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Kim. Bye.